Um, I have to somehow, I really think finally I reached point where I can really say, now this initial stage of alarming the planet and bringing that warning sign, I have been actually accomplished, and where now I would expect every nation to start recapitulating on what we have been saying here and prepare for what would to follow, and that is a real management of Earth, real United Nations alike protocol, where we would be speaking more roughly about cultural diversity, and where United Nations is going to look not, for example, Africa represented with 100 states and Europe represented with 10 states, but then we are in United Nations. But where the most powerful 5, 6, 7 are going to end up having Kardashians and the likes on board. Although I feel more like talking to my sister, and I feel again being more grateful than not. I am just, these people certainly are the one maintaining me alive and the rest. What I want to say here is that West, as it is, will need to improve its overall presence as well. And if West continue to play the power center, how that's going to happen? We have management of Earth that can speak to West from the above as well, that can speak to Russians from the above, to Africans from the above. We need planetary protocol that can speak to anyone from the above, because that's the reality. The reality is that one that stands above is actually the planet itself. And that is why the idea of BRICS is very good approach. I just really want to be very clear that bringing tribunal societies forward via such mechanism is not going to give us better planet. I think it might bring forward everything that we need to fight West about. And that is how power in a nation get created to begin with. And while I really intended to fight it today on the West onward, I understand that with BRICS on board, I will need to fight all of that multiplied by 5. And that is actually the tribunal society of the planet. Here, what we are fighting is the time dimension, the timeline. Where the fight happens here is in relation to the time in which we live and what that means, and how time differentiates us. Not genetics, but the time. And of course, time meaning accomplished not only physical criteria, but also civilizational. It is not for nothing why you have more developed social care among developed societies. You're not going to find them discussing, although actually we found them discussing how much social care we have. We have to have, you see, what is in the fact that something like that is happening, it means that you have the older societies increasingly being in charge on the Western territories as well. the fact that social system is being reduced on the West side indicates that tribunal societies are increasing their power on West as well. As much as I wanted to criticize West for the fact that it has become easily breakable, as you can see now, it's happening. And that is because of the way how it has been constructed. Of course, now that has been used, not just because I am saying it, but because it was obvious. It is now going to be used, of course, by the forces that I actually want to fight from the very beginning. The tribunal forces that by taking over West are going to take over the planet. And they continue to think that they are good news. Of course, they are not good news, and I think most of them know very well that they are not good news. Because people know when they are good news, and people know when they are not good news. But they are not there fighting for power to be good news. So they're there fighting for power to become powerful news. That is what they're after. They're after being powerful, not after being good. And how far my work and money I create here have contributed these people to grow power out of me. Yes, these are my people. These are the people that continue to grow power out of me. And no wonder it's going to break some war there anytime soon if they do not stop immediately to use my money for their further promotion. If they don't stop using my money for their promotion, West is going to hit them with all of their force, and it's going to break them for all of the times, including Russians. Well, take my word, you continue to use my money and my work so recklessly for your promotion and promotion of what you want, promotion of the world that you want, and you are going to make Venice right there over my nose. You will going to get it so hard that you will never forget it. I don't think that you have that much time, homies. I don't think you have that much time. I think you have overplayed yourself. And no, we don't talk Iran. We don't talk even Israel. We don't talk even Palestine. I think you know very well who are the one I'm talking about. Of course, being recognized as Muppets and puppets somewhere in England is never going to give you your own run, not much of your own identity either. And I have been saying for a longer period of time, on our territories, we do not have proper stamps. We have gadgets working for someone else. We have two real kids of Cleopatra somewhere in imperial corridors, of being usable for delivering imperial promise, regretfully not for themselves. It's not godly correct. And each time when I find my correct answers on these levels, or on much more absolute levels, I become convinced over and over again. We have to change the way how we do politics on the ground. We have to change ways how we think about ourselves as well, especially speaking from some cultural national levels. The consequences of holding in Europe such political whole, such whole of real, true, authentic cultural identity and political identities, because for quite some time we have to notice cultural identity is not going to make that much sense if it is not properly embodied within the political identity, especially speaking of Europe. It becomes critically important that we once forever identify what is the real, the most authentic fabric of these cultural identities, speaking in some kind of, in much more developed stages, rather than speaking about some kind of ancient history, for example, and then forgetting about real genetic ruling and real political identity related questions, which somewhere in Europe, for example, also related to ancient history, continue to be contemporary, developing into contemporary political stamp that doesn't erase or hide its previous history, or, although I have certainly demanded that, have not been understood their connection with their earlier history. As I have said, most correct would be to say that today each of the nations have been tasked exactly with that kind of recalibration with their previous history and recognizing their cultural and political, above all political identity, very much as a most correct answer of their most authentic cultural identity as well, so they feel enough realized in any new time. Of course, it will be much harder for nations and cultures that have become so much locked in any foreign interpretation of their history, that have lost any awareness that they are, for example, occupied for longer period of time and very much in mercy of someone else writing and making their history in recent times. And recent, I'm talking, well, certainly considerably a millennium of time period. Obviously, we can talk here about Roman imperialism and the fact that our territories never stopped since the times of Roman imperialism, which is still going AD, actually, have not managed to recover and recalibrate their authentic cultural identity to be embodied in their formally represented political identity as they are marked today on the world map. I don't also think that this is that much typical for any other of territories, as much as it is typical, especially for our ancient plateau, that is especially plateau of ancient Macedonia, ancient Greece, including Palestine and Israel, all the way to Babylon, that is Middle Eastern ancient plateau, or Mediterranean ancient plateau. If I now, for this purpose, set Roman imperialism aside, accused to be much more in control of holding the previous under their spell to the present times, and emerging powerful as such in their allied forces as USA. Main alignment of Roman imperialism has happened on the line with Octavian, which I'm going to recognize as Celtic/Irish identity. The main alliance we can talk about within the configuration of what it is today United States of America. I'm going to find the strongest bond being Roman imperialism with Octavian of Ireland, because we talk here about Blue Eyes, on North Britannia. That is the bond that certainly built Yugoslavia. That is the bond that continued to relate to Israel as the later puppet, as genie in the magic lamp, as whiskey bar, and so on and so on. Although, again, I'm going to remind here, Israel would happen more as a Judah to Jesus sitting on Balkan, especially in identity of Serbia, because Serbia somehow stands out as being much more stubborn and very often determined and more kind of genetically configured within some kind of concept of intensity that would create a king to notice and king to get under your spell as ongoing political or regional challenge of more developed, more established political forces. And in this context, I'm going to notice how wrong is my approach to defend some kind of imperial accomplishments. Although I'm doing that in philosophical manner, speaking rather about properties than about actual political establishment, of course. As I can say, on the ground, all of that conveniently gets translated exactly how it is convenient to the powers on the throne, which of course recklessly use my work, as of course we live in a free world, especially for them, of course. And it would be laughable if something would be preventing them to nicely apply my work to their drive to continue to sit on that political establishment, have a tricky, nice smile on their faces, playing some kind of element of overspoiled playfulness, and simply go away with completely stealing and adopting my work to their political, further straightening of their political positions on the daylight of our planetary tribes to change how things have been done on the planet and to promise some kind of political reform. As long as they find justifiable to adopt my imperial admiration with accomplished identity features on personal level, vertical points, and so on, Excalibur, Highlander, as long as they find feasible that my Excalibur and Highlander as a philosophical protocol is very much adaptable or adoptable to their political positions, nothing on earth will stop them to actually employ exactly such approach. And that is where I finally need to draw a line with my imperial admirations and set as my own reminder the very fact that countries from where I'm being born exactly are being marked as a Romulus and Rem of Mother Wolf, adopted sons of Rome, and hold them accordingly accountable on the very foundations of the entire concept of Roman imperialism, which of course continue to be very foundational to the entire notion of United States of America, and before we get there, to entire notion of British Empire. And if I focus and ask you to pay attention exactly to the very foundational symbols of Rome, I'm already holding the entire Western imperial heritage for both of the horns. Accordingly, today I'm asking Western imperial platform, or wing rather, to elaborate on protocol Romulus and Rem of Mother Wolf of Rome. This is therefore political question, graduation level of the political leaders of the planet, national, of course, political leaders, will need to answer to this question. Reflect, please, to the symbol of Roman imperialism. The mother wolf of Rome, because, well, in the center of entire Roman imperialism, which continued to be foundation of our contemporary civilizational cycle, sits actually exactly Rome. And Rome does have its city level of symbol, the mother wolf of Rome, and two adopted kids. We are talking adopted kids by Roman imperialism. It is time to speak up. What adopted kids we are talking about? I want West Wing to answer to this question, please, so we can proceed with the latest clarifications that will need to be understood as our latest drive to not just search for our true, authentic identity, but actually, in most correct terms, answer that question before we get in promise defending it. Our political national identities, I mean. You can't defend something that you will not know what it is or where it is its matrix. Because I'm going to argue again and again and again. I'm not going to accept that you translate matrix and in a movie matrix as some kind of negative approach. You're going to understand it as a matrix of a bee population, for example, as a natural phenomena, as what motherhood is, if not natural phenomena. You just might call it phenomena as well. Why not? Matrix cultural protocol is just talking about your kryptonite. You have to know where it is, what it is, and how you will continue to look after it. Or if you don't look after something, then you're going to end up not having it. And that is exactly where we are today, ladies and gentlemen, and the rest. Not just on West, but from West on East as well, as history confirms that solidly. So as a matter of most natural presence of mixed bloodlines on the planet, and mixed bloodline means mixed bloodline, cross means cross. That is why it is cross. It means crossed bloodlines. And it is not that someone is denying it, but someone is actually delivering that cross in the authenticity of its own existence. And that should be noticed and understood accordingly. If I do not find myself inspired enough, or supported enough, or I don't know, provoked enough to bring the entire conversation or the entire school on the West side for whatever convenience is there or it's not there, as for example, a reason might be to stop the previous, to continue to grow in such cloud. Or it might be a solid reason, but you find called upon to deny the previous, and it becomes more urgent than to start building the new. Because if you don't take out the previous and you start building the new, you might end up wasting your time and your money and endangering yourself. You can't start new before you deal with the previous in most profound and systematic way. In the context of the above, I have to say also that West, in the way how it happened to be, in the way how it is emerging, therefore again proved itself as not good enough, because it has allowed, that West has allowed that we live under some kind of hippie spell called Bible for way too long. I remember just before I started to do, and one of the reasons why I started to do what I'm doing here is, just before I started to do, I remember when Hillary Clinton was elected, was a candidate for a future president of America, and one of the questions she has been asked was, what you think of religion, and it was one of the very serious questions. I mean, they really were thinking of it as a very, very serious question. It was like you a question in category of graduating at university or something. It was so seriously posted question. What is your position on religion? You want to talk about artificial intelligence. West is artificial intelligence. USA of America is artificial intelligence. England is artificial intelligence. Britannia is artificial intelligence. Because they are brainwashed by the element of power, because they feel so much empowered to the extent that they ended up to believe whatever they do, even if they move with a small finger, it is how it's supposed to be and it is correct. They reach the point of thinking themselves as gods. And God is whatever God does. That's the level of confidence I found when came here. I was erased from my mind. I was treated as and seen as that is not that they were playing something. That's origin. That is how they think. I was a mature woman with two kids, 36 years, clearly polished enough. The most uneducated person could have topped me up with a comment or teach me about their cheese and macaroni lifestyle as the one from the above. I was not existing. My mind was having absolutely no relevance. My entire 36 years of existence, and they have absolutely no clue what I have been doing in these 36 years. Or from where I come, who are my parents, nothing. They have been seeing what they are seeing, and that is their godly presence. And God doesn't need information about what you are, how you are, where you have been living. No, God see only his own light. And then God knows that is God. And look, the Balkanico puppets, what they have done. Well, they have been walking exactly the walk and following the recipe book, so they can become the little gods themselves as well. And now we have Balkanico companies walking out there on the steps of their uncles on the exactly Balkanico godly levels. Exactly same. They don't going to give a damn as long as they can see themselves in a mirror. God defined. Again. They defined God. They don't need a homework or to read books. They have read them enough by looking in the light of gods, learning from gods directly. So what's the problem with the West? Well, we can't call something like that God. That's the problem. And what I'm going to do with your puppetry now? On your tail, Mark. Although I sound it again harsh versus this uncle prototype that I'm going to be sorry about at some point. But that is what Croatia is to me, its uncle. I can't be as any other Serb to think narrow-mindedly about these territories. If my father looks more on a Serbia side, and my uncle prevail more in some kind of rather my Buddha grandmother prevail more on the blonde because her brother, that is brother of my grandmother, is looked more like Zeus himself, like typical Celt of Serbia, with yellow hair. That is robust body, not that much tall, typical Celt. That is the brother of that is uncle to my father. Was blonde, typical blonde Celt. Therefore, Yugoslavs, you can't criticize me for thinking of Croatia and Serbia accordingly, because I have it in my family just like that. My father is like having black hair as like main character, not main character, is as black as carbon, like black, like black hair. And and his uncle would be having totally blonde, typical Celt appearance. Yeah, you have something like that in one family. So what you do, you're going to cut family in two? You're going to split the family now? No, you can't do that. We don't do that. You can't think like that about territories. You're not going to push me to make choice between Serbia and Croatia, because I'm not making it, because there are of us, solid percentage of us in that Yugoslavia that would be of mixed breed. And you don't ask a child, are you going to go with your mother or you're going with your father? And then they also need to go in war and you're supposed to take a side. No, you don't ask kids something like that. I'm going to find very bad taste when you continue to talk about thousands of reasons why I should be hating each other, but not enough reasons why you should continue to live together. Or to one of the main reasons why you should continue to live together, because it is because you live together. And it cannot be any other reason but geography itself. Being in permanent war with your neighbor is never going to be a good idea. It's always going to be your weakness. It's going to be power to your oppositions, to your enemies. I am that much pro-life approach person that I never take seriously arguing or negative energy. I just ignore it because I have no intention to include it in my life. So that is not that I am not informed or I am not patriotic. I am just flying higher above. And that is how you should be as well. Fly higher above. Because we should be always looking into the future, as that is where our kids are going. And you as a parent, you are supposed to trace that road for them. Now, I will never understand people that continue to pull out constantly. Don't forget our victims, don't forget Jasenovac, don't forget what they have done to us. And of course, we should never forget. Yet, think about our dead, then they're going to continue to happen. The only way how to think ahead without dead ahead before their time is to stop thinking about that. I mean, everyone now of these holistic teachings are teaching you how to think. Trace your future. Negative thought attacks negative events. Negative thinking attracts negative events. For our historians, that's never a rule. No, they're always endlessly going to pull the worst events that happened in our history. So, because we are not supposed to forget them. Excuse me, any holistic approach is asking you exactly opposite. You mentally create your future. Well, unless we want the dead to continue to look like an endless graveyard, we should just move on. And you have to explain to your enemies that they cannot plan war on our territories ever again. You have to make clear, we have to use very clear voice, and you have to tell to your enemies they will never ever going to make war on our territories. Otherwise, you will be a bloody fools and biggest losers on the planet. And somewhere on the peripheries is going to speak about yin and yang as endless opportunity. Yes, out of your dead bodies, for sure. And your pockets emptied. And your bank's account made available to someone else. Because that is what happens when you die. They take over your bank account as it never was there. What on earth do you think is happening with all of these buildings of Palestinians? What happened? Are we not going to ask what's happening with their bank accounts as well? Emptied, of course. I'm going to admire, and then I'm going to admire some kind of puppets and muppets sitting out there in England and France out of richness. How stupid one should be. I'm going to watch now Princess Catherine getting a selfie on her round table. Look as long as lizard, while the kids continue to die on the planet on a daily basis. And I'm going to wish to take her place. The only wish I have is not to look at that grotesque sin anymore. And I hope soon that's going to be real. I hope very, very soon that to actually happens as well. And nothing less, I would admire some kind of Muppets going in Notre Dame with sick faces on there, with sickening faces out there, celebrating what is none and never was any of their business. It is not about Notre Dame, it's about my people. It's time to start practicing that one. That chorus. My people. Well, it goes both ways. France. So what I want to say here is to remind again and again and again, any monarchy and any history of this planet emerges, or it has been born from the matrix protocol of monarchy. It is a franchise, actually. And that protocol can only be now thought of as a franchise because previously it was bloodline related. It is still bloodline related. But in order that we understand it in some kind of functional context, and to be professional as how we should be in 21st century, the only way how to understand that professionally, it is to implement the protocol of representativeness, representation, and what they represent, or what they are supposed to represent. Accordingly, you need a matrix protocol that's going to define and regulate the protocol itself. Otherwise, how many times to say, there is absolutely useless to speak about that protocol and historic heritage. As such, but the other day we discussed that you can't erase historic heritage because everything that you are today, we somehow are being very much used to use that kind of configuration that is matter of our historic heritage to understand ourselves, to mentally configure ourselves within certain national, cultural, political, and civil protocol. I'm going to point out, and civil protocol, or we will end up as a gypsies on the streets. And I don't want us to end like that. I think that it was a solid effort enrolled in all of the previous times that we become out of people that we have been traveling on the soil, on the grounds, have become nations. And not any group of people should be left today to think that they do not have nation to whom they are going to belong. There is no such people, there is no such thing, there cannot be such thing as people without a nation. Because we, at some point of time, as a humanity, have decided to make nations as outfit for this kind of cultural and socio-political interference. If it has become normative at some point of time, then it has become normative for everyone. And there is no need to think otherwise. Accordingly, stop talking about some people as without a land, because it doesn't make any sense. If we implemented that protocol on Earth, then it is implemented. Each of the people would have a land to which they were to belong. That is why you have three-colored flag. Most of European countries have three-colored flag. Well, you're going to find these people that are living on your territories. You're going to find precisely and exactly in which color they belong. You have to recognize them. In your identity historic heritage card, you have to recognize, are they belong to white color, or there, which is matter of mixing in order to produce qualifying a class, qualifying a ruling class, which means that you will have certain percentage of population that would be immigration, as that immigration would be giving you, well, 1/3 of your population for a variety of professions of the principal account, because these three colors are making a principal count, which means highest of the functions of the planet, highest of the functions of the nation would be made out of these colors of your flag, which means if you have color white, it is protocol Cinderella, W, which means it is reference to having certain percentage of prime population that will need to be filtered, that when filtered via few generations, deliver principal performance. Delivers principal performance. Well, that means you have to look after immigrants as well, because, well, they provide 1/3 of your future principal performance. And I wouldn't call that prostitution rather at all, because you would not like your future leading characters to be born out of house of prostitutes. Excuse me. If white color is 30% of your population, you're not going to make 30% prostitutes out there of your population. It would not make any sense. Also, I'm going to say, as a woman, you can't use such reference about a human being, because it is more like killing someone, and then it is more like a slavery. It's basically reference to slavery. It is female version of slavery. It is slavery. You can't speak of a slavery as a regular event in 21st century. Well, you are like one of the principal democratic countries in the world, a principal democracy in the world, and you are going to talk about prostitution, which is basically female slavery. Well, that is what it is. No, it can't be. You're among the most democratic countries in the world. Your immigrants will need to be taken care of first of all, selected carefully and then properly taken care of. One will say, well, a nation, making a nation is not exactly boutique. Certainly not when it happens in like 30, 40, 50 millions. That's probably how much France would have. It's not exactly a boutique situation. Yet, it is something that one will need to bring even in United Nations, and will need to be matter of ongoing and never stoppable relationship with Africa, working on development of Africa, and working with the cause of the problem in Africa, and that is bringing Africa to much more a responsible political order, where they are going to be the one solving the problems of immigration, not someone from outside. So, neocolonialism, what was neocolonialism, now will need to be replaced with ongoing communication, cooperation, and development, with accent on developing as China, what China is doing, developing of the territories that would be perceived as a protocol of ongoing cooperation. Now here, one would say that is exactly what it has been done in the previous times, and it was about exploitation, and these resource countries would not like to be perceived as being exploited. If I return now in Yugoslavia and I would think about foreign investments, I would say, no, we don't want foreign investments, we are going to make it all by ourselves. And our extended expatriated people that would be investing their money into their home country, so we don't want any other foreign capital. In that context, it's easy to say something like that when you're as that little country as it is Yugoslavia, former. When you are a vast territory as it is, for example, Africa, I'm very sure many of these countries will find still as a better option to have someone to make some sense of that land rather than to stay unused forever. There is plenty still, I think, of space that we talk about Europe being present on the territories outside of Europe in the way how China is doing it. And in that context, I'm just going to say also here, what will need to be amended in Europe. I really don't know what on earth I'm doing, I know this. Let's still, I'm going to say, people, you have a feeling that people are expecting of you something. No, I actually have a rather expectation that this plan start making sense. Because it annoys me. In the moment when you notice something, you become annoyed. Like, when something in your house is not properly placed, when that flower is not exactly sitting in the room how it sits, and then you want to make it so it can sit in that room properly. That is how it annoys me. It just annoys me. It annoys me that we have still very cheap culture in Europe, and that the standard of being rich in Europe is so out of taste. It annoys me that monarchy of England it does have such cheap friends that look vulgar and offensive, and that they can't make a criteria of how to make friends, because I start to think that they are themselves nothing better class. They're made out of money and nothing more than money. In substance, these people are basically low class. Also, they want to project themselves higher class, just behaving as a poodles on a competition rally. It annoys me that you have very cheap taste about what kind of people you're going to walk next to and what kind of people you're going to make friends with. It annoys me when you don't have criteria. And when what call itself rich class, it is actually rotten, disgusting, dirty bunch of rotten apples. And you continue to bother this entire world with your politics of advanced civilization or more developed, when in substance you're so stinky, ugly, and vulgar. And that is what we call elite. They're dirty, tasteless apples. Look, Elizabeth Taylor, what kind of husband she got married out there. This is embarrassing. Why you people don't know how to live with yourself? Why you depend so much on friends? Why you depend so much on other people? What kind of statement you're going to make as an elite if you can't make a statement all by yourself? Why on earth you're attracting the dirtiest and the most criminal people on the planet? The dirtiest people are walking next to you. You are attracting the biggest garbage on the planet. And you're making such a big deal of the world that the one get disgusted of it. No, any solid, normal people would like to have anything to do with your lifestyle or would like to have anything to do with you. And you should be aware of it. No, many of these other normal people would like to be that close to you and anything that you are. For them, you are just a garbage. With all of your money, you're just a garbage. So I wanted to close this while advising you on your international politics. And you're trying to continue to be elites of the world. I wanted to explain to you, there is no such thing as elite. There is just such thing as a garbage. And you nations, you need to start solving that garbage of yours as well. Before continue to think about international cooperation, solve first domestic garbage. And the bloodlines are not to be blamed, but the people around them, the nations around them, because the rotten apple continue to be the people themselves. I just can't stop thinking about what neighbors have been given, what neighboring house was next to my mother's and who was her friend most of the time when she was going on a weekend house. That woman was nothing of her class. It was like totally some kind of absolutely not just lower class, but with some kind of prison stamps out there as well. I mean, would that kind of person, would my mother, would she knows how to be next to such people? She would not know even how to behave next to such people. People that are out there in some kind of levels of hotel owners. People that have to be friends with all of the junk in order to have their business going on. People that attract all of the junks in their circles. My mom would not know how to deal with such people. She would be completely walked over such kind of garbage people. And that is what happens to these bloodlines. They're surrounded by garbages. They don't know. They're not up to that game of the straight gangs. They're too naive for them, and end up being vulgarized by them, and end up being diminished by them. So there is, of course, the golden line going within the nations, and then that golden line having the layers of oxidation attached on top of them. I certainly pull out here my DNA call, and that makes me, I would say permanent rather than old. Absolute would be most correct expression. Certain matters are just absolute. And there are many young people out there that are tuning with much more absolute notions, or are prone to recognize them as such. And these are the people that are predispositioned to be later on presidents, or I don't know, advisors, and more kind of critical people in the future functioning of the societies, because are aware of such notions, of notions of absolute. These are usually subjects as it is philosophy, as it is literature, as it is science. When young mind dive into it, it is reaching that point of absoluteness rather than older. You have a very young people that are very often young people that are reaching that level of thoughtfulness as older people, or as many old people would not even get there. It is rather thoughtfulness. So I'm not going to associate it with age. I'm going to associate it with philosophy, thinking, literacy, and science. So how I bring monarchy into that? Well, it is a matrix of humanity. And what kind of monarchy house you're going to have if you don't connect it to the matrix house? And when I pull out now the land of amphitheaters, because it is a planetary philosophical center. Many until yesterday, many wanted to talk about Tibet. Until yesterday, or still you're talking about religion, or you're talking about Buddhism. These are all matrix houses where you go in order to dive into that kind of knowledge, and you somehow have that kind of need to connect to something like that, or to have something like that, to be sourced by something like that. So you can't say we don't want monarchy in France, because we have to clarify first of all what on earth that means. It means historic duration. It means accomplished historic heritage position on international stage. It means recipe book for national identity. It means national identity stamp. It means weight of all of your history. Weights in tons and tons and tons. And it's not 4 years president is not going to do it. I'm sorry. So, excuse me, why I'm constantly seeing image of Macedonia out there flying all over France? What on earth is that? What on earth is that? No, blonde hair, dark hair, Macedonia, Serbia. What on earth is that? I mean, there should be national equation there. And national equation is Versailles, Notre Dame. There is national equation. What all of that suggests matrix or monarchy. You can't have Notre Dame, can't have Versailles, and you say, we don't want monarchs. No, maybe monarchs do not want you rather. Now, I want to point out here the philosophical aspect of this entire situation, and how important is that we understand here how this protocol, which is national formation, how that actually works. That it all does have its central point of configuration, where you just sit there and just because you know how to think. And where are the people sitting there? The ones that are sitting there are the ones that know how to think, the ones that are thinking. Because the rest of the people don't have time for that, or have decided to choose to live their life differently. But these are not going to be people that are going to say what they want, because they live their life out of what they want. And then there is something like they need to notice rather than to have an opinion on it. First to notice it, then have opinion on it. First learn about it, then have opinion about it. First knowledge, then opinion. I have to notice that there was plenty of green salad talk. Like hippies talking, empty talk. Like talking, babbling. That's like the name of Bible as well. Babbling. They can babble and babble, but very little of the actual substance is going to get out of it. And you end up like searching for gold in the sand. Not searching, because it is not like someone else, third party, to search. But something emerging out of it. And you see, like, there is 90% like bubbling, and then like 10% if you're lucky enough to emerge on top of it. But if a country doesn't have a tradition to actually look and build its nation out of such criteria, then it doesn't bring historic heritage house on such parameters. Now imagine if you have been employing that criteria, looking for the top 10% of philosophical grounds in that ancient plateau and maintaining it as such to the present days, where you would be by now. Okay, we still have America there. Also, America is Americanized. And that's not going to work that much for you now. So my question is, what I can pull, what's the critical mass of people I can pull to present to international community as my environment, as the environment of the territories? What's the percentage that I can pull so I can call a certain territory matrix of something? If I'm going to call you matrix of something, it's not going to be just me, one vertical point, extraterrestrial sitting there. I'm not saying I'm extraterrestrial, I'm just going to say it's going to look like that. Because you're so much disconnected. And why on earth you started to disconnect? Why on earth you started to disconnect from your own history? What you have been thinking? Where on earth you think you're going to find yourself in a given future time? Or really Atlantis, building canals around the center? Yeah, that's certainly going to be Atlantis, rather than Olymp. All of the water canals around the center. So it's not going to be reachable. Well, that is my slap in your face now. If I cannot enclose you, you cannot declare it. It's not answerable. That question is not answerable. You have the performance, but you don't have the history to support it. And that's your downfall. Downfall which you have been building together in 2 millenniums of time. And today you see the results of your work. I don't have a protocol in you. I can't make protocol out of you. If you have other opinion than this one, I would like to hear it. Serbia, if it was not that much chauvinistic, would have been helpful. There is a quite serious basin in Serbia that one can pull out, because actually it is heritage of Yugoslavia, and and you can pull out plenty of former Yugoslavia as well. If one can have such kind of canvas made available to do something like that, we might reactivate that basin in completely new way by enclosing today more serious presence of ancient Macedonian heritage, And also, you really need to be. You really need to bring alchemy there as well. And certainly, Albania will need to be filtered. You know, the moment you reach this kind of statements, you just realize all of that looks much more as a factory than as a final product. And that is how exactly these people were managing and are managing this planet have actually understood this entire situation. You see, the energies in Middle East is much more raw. I wouldn't where I'm changing the game is I don't trash them as and I don't think of them as Keanu Reeves of nobody America would think, because these people are completely out of touch. Their mental configuration doesn't exit America, let aside to pass all over the entire Europe in order to understand how someone sitting where I sit would say Middle East. But these people never bothered to ask